Hey guys, my name is Anush, and I thought I would speak on this issue of, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and just the overall condition of, the way that society is reacting right now when it comes to police brutality and systemic racism and things like that. Now, I understand everybody has a different viewpoint and they have a different perspective on what is happening. So I thought I would give my own perspective on based on the data and the articles that I have read and just from my general perspective on what I think to be, in my view, what I see happening in society. So to put it simply and bluntly, like, I don't believe that there's a systemic racism issue in the United States. I do think there are problems. I do think that there are major problems that might even sometimes be within individuals in the system, but it's very different when someone says that it is a systemic issue, right? So technically, when somebody says there is systemic racism or systemic sexism and things like that, what that means is the whole system, the whole institution and organization is predicated, it's being undergirded and held by laws that systematically discriminate against someone based on their skin color alone, right? Either their skin color alone or primarily their skin color, right? So I don't find any evidence of that to be true. I find that, you know, that people, for the most part, are treated fairly. And this is not, I'm not here to necessarily take sides and say that, like, it's just completely personal responsibility and things like that. That's not really what I'm arguing, but I do. So I'm trying to look at it as less black and white and more in terms of statistics, right? Like, what is statistically more probable? So, because reality is very complex. I mean, ultimately, nobody knows whether it is systemic or whether it is not systemic, 100%, right? So we can guess, we can say, well, I lean more this way or I lean more this way. So it's very disingenuous and very dishonest for anybody to say that it's definitely this way, right? We can interpret data in a certain way that fits, whether it's from our experiences, from our preconceived notions, what we think is true and not true, but ultimately nobody knows the entire truth. So again, I do think there is a race issue in society, and I think that's more as a result of people making the wrong choice, right? So I think it's unfair to say that police in general are hunting black people, whether it's African Americans or it's Hispanic Americans or just anybody in general who is considered a minority. I don't find that to be true. If you read the articles that are posted by, this is an interesting article actually that I read yesterday. It's called "There's No Epidemic of Racist Police Shootings," and it was written by Heather McDonald. She is an attorney and a political commentator who studies these issues, and she has been studying it, I think, for almost 20 years or something like that. But this was posted last year, July 31st, 2019, and she wrote another op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. So she quotes a few studies that, for example, one study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and here's what they found. So there's a database of 917 officer-involved fatal shootings in 2015, from more than 650 police departments. 55% of the victims were white, 27% were black, and 19% were Hispanic. Between 90 and 95% of the civilians shot by officers in 2015 were attacking police or other citizens. 90% were armed with a weapon. So-called threat misperception shootings in which an officer shoots, so this is now, it's her, in which an officer shoots an unarmed civilian after mistaking a cell phone, say, for a gun, were rare, right? So, another study that she quotes is, let me see here, I'm trying to find it. But yeah, this is a Justice Department study of the Philadelphia Police Department found that black officers were 67% more likely than white officers to mistakenly shoot an unarmed black suspect. Hispanic officers were 145% more likely than white officers to mistakenly shoot an unarmed black suspect. So, now obviously this is not the whole story, and we can go back and forth and quoting different studies and different statistics, but to say it's either this way or either that way 100% and so determinedly in such a black and white fashion is not, it's counterproductive, and it's not going to produce a good dialogue. So I'm the kind of person who's always willing to change my mind when the evidence presents itself. However, I ask the people who hold the position that there is systemic racism to look at the other side. And even for the people who don't believe that, like me, I don't believe that there is systemic racism, to look at the other side as well and see what they're saying. So think for yourselves, guys. So don't let one source of media dictate how you think. I think that's the problem with the way people approach facts, is they only get their facts from one source only, or from sources that have one viewpoint. It's very important to listen to both liberal and conservative news and outlets and just decide based on your own logic what's true and what's not. So that's the approach that I take. It's also very important to suspend any sort of preconceived political notions and ideologies that we have in order to get at the facts, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with having a political ideology. I mean, that's just part of the way that we look at things. So it's impossible to be completely neutral about something. That requires knowing everything. But at the same time, we can do our part in being more objective and being open to different forms of arguments, so that way we can have a healthy dialogue and healthy disagreements about this issue. So that's pretty much it. I really don't see much evidence to support the claim that there is widespread systemic racism. I think that's more a problem of individual officers who go too far with enforcing the laws, but that's not the same as saying the whole system is flawed, right? Or the whole system is racist per se, right? So again, no system is perfect. I'm by no means saying that America is this perfect fairyland that, where you get justice immediately, but it is definitely much better than other countries that have an extremely skewed system that discriminates against you. So these are my thoughts, and I hope that people continue to engage in a healthy dialogue and try to understand the other point of view instead of carry the conversation in one direction and be so determined that your point of view is correct that you refuse to listen to the other person and just see where they're coming from, right? So yeah, but other than that, I do hope that, I'm glad that the police officer that was involved in the killing of George Floyd, so I know his last name is Chauvin, but I'm glad that he was arrested and he was prosecuted. So that's just, you know. But to claim that he represents all or most of the police force is completely disingenuous, and it kind of ignores the big picture. So we just kind of focus on one part of the picture instead of the entire picture. So I encourage you guys to look at the facts and come up with your decisions through information instead of through emotion and feelings. Thank you guys for listening.